Lord, I pray as we enter into this time of worship, God, that your name would be on our hearts, God, and that we would just be a direct reflection of you. God, I pray that we would pour our hearts out to you in this time. And God, as we go about the rest of this week, God, and everything that we say and everything that we do, I pray that we would just be a direct reflection of you, God. We love you, and we pray all these things in your name.
Saturday was silent, surely it was through. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? Friday's disappointment, and Sunday's empty tomb. Since when has impossible ever stopped you? This is the sound of the dry bones rattling. This is the praise, make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out, I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of a dry bones rattling. Pentecostal fire is stirring something new. You're not gonna run out of miracles anytime soon. And resurrection power runs in my veins too. I believe there's another miracle in this room. And this is the sound of the dry bones rattling. This is the praise, make a dead man walk again. Hope in the grave, I'm coming out, I'm gonna live again. And this is the sound of the dry bones rattling. My God is able to save and deliver and heal and restore anything that he wants to. Just ask the man who was thrown on the bones of Elisha if there's anything that he can't do. Just ask the stone that was rolled at the tomb in the garden what happens when God says to move. I feel him moving it now. I feel him doing it now. I feel him doing it now. Do it now. Do it now. And this is the sound of the dry bones rattling. This is the praise, make a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of the dry bones rattling. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus, 'cause he's never let me down. He won't. I've still got joy in chaos. I've got peace that makes no sense, so I won't be going under. I'm not held by my own strength, 'cause I built my life on Jesus. 'Cause He's never let me down. He's faithful in every season. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. Came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. And I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause rain came, wind blew, but my house was built on you. Safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Yeah, I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause I'm standing strong on you. Oh, I'm gonna make it through. 'Cause my house was built on you. Christ is my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. 'Cause He's never let me down. He's faithful through generations. So why would He fail now? He won't. He won't. He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't. Make this your prayer this morning. He won't. 'Cause God doesn't fail. He won't fail. He won't. God, we come to you this morning. We thank you for this opportunity that we get to come and be in your presence this morning. Lord, I pray that as Brock comes up, that you would just give him the words to speak. God, that you would allow us to open our hearts and open our eyes and open our ears to you, Lord, this morning. God, we are so thankful over and over and over again for everything that you have done. You died on the cross for us, and we love you and we do everything in your name. Amen.
Amen. How we doing? I don't believe you. You guys ready for school? You're almost done. You're almost done. The light is at the end of the tunnel. And I just got to throw a little shout out to our business class. I guess there's a business thing happen from the students who are in a business class. You're wearing suits today. Is that happening? Is that what I heard? You looking good. Can we give our suit wearers a hand? Oh my gosh. I feel underdressed. Dress for success. I never got that one. I mostly have been lived on the West Coast, but we moved to a town just outside of New York City, and we lived there for about 5 years, just outside of Manhattan, called Greenwich. Now, Greenwich is the wealthiest zip code in the nation. And I mean, it's like when you make it in Manhattan, on Wall Street or in the arts, actors, musicians, sports figures, and a lot of hedge fund money people, they move. Once you make it, you move to Greenwich. And so we went from living and ministering in inner city Los Angeles, in particular Long Beach, the LBC, you know me. All of a sudden we were living amongst the wealthiest people in the world. It was quite a transition. Now in this town, Greenwich, it's really interesting because they, every freshman in high school at Greenwich High School takes a class called The Myth of Creation. And they really breed atheists and agnostics in the city. And so not only that, the youth pastor before me had lost his faith and so had led the youth group kind of right along with him. And so the youth group heard that the church had hired this new youth pastor. We move across the country, and they're upset because they hear this new youth pastor is really into Jesus. So it's our first night, meet the new youth pastor night, and we're having pizza, hanging out, and then we come together, and I ask a question. I go, hey, what do you guys love about your youth group? Now, maybe you were a youth group kid, and you got a new youth pastor. There's a lot of like, do we like this person or not? And I totally get that. They already had decided they didn't like me before they met me because I really was into Jesus. But I ask them, what do you guys love about your youth group? And this senior in high school guy stands up as kind of a spokesperson for the whole youth group. And he says, Brock, the best thing about our youth group is no one talks about Jesus here. And we can believe whatever we want to believe. And I was like, all right, thanks for sharing. And so he just kind of drew a line in the sand, like, don't be talking to us about this Jesus. We're not interested. But I just kind of went on, and week after week, I would talk about Jesus, and I found them getting more and more turned off by it. So we just decided we're just gonna care for these kids. Now again, there was all kinds of pressure. 80% of kids in Greenwich, in the town of Greenwich, make it into an Ivy League school. 80%. So literally, if you get accepted into Duke University, you are a failure as a person because that's not Ivy League. Like, this is that kind of horrific anxiety and pressure. And so these kids, honestly, were struggling. And so we show up, and I'm just like, we're going to go to every football game, every basketball game, every recital, every play, and we're just going to care for these kids. And that's what we did. We just started caring for these students who honestly were struggling. And so after about 6 months, I convinced them they're starting to warm up to me. And about 6 months, I go, hey, let's do a scientific experiment. Let's do an experiment and see if Jesus is real or not. And what we're going to do is we're going to take all of our questions and all of our doubts, these really important questions, these vital, crucial doubts. Just the experiment, we're going to take this stuff and we're going to put it on the shelf for just a moment. We're going to come back to these because these are vital. But just for the purpose of the experiment, let's take these doubts, these questions, these reasons why there's no way I'm believing in God, especially Jesus. Let's just put them here for a second. And then let's open up and go, God, if you're real, Jesus, if you're real, work in my life. Like these kids are, it was like normal to have panic attacks and severe anxiety. They had never experienced having a sense of peace, the pressure, just having parents that successful to live up to their success, just that whole culture, the whole mindset, just this oppressive way of thinking and living. And they were desperate. And so they were like, all right, so this room of kids, all right, I've got these reasons. All right, Jesus, I don't think you're real, but if you're real, work in my life. And what ended up happening is God started showing up in these really brilliant, amazing kids. Many started experiencing the power and presence of God's Spirit in their lives. And many of them experienced peace for the very first time. And then we started doing, hey, let's make a list of things we can pray for. And we started praying for things. And then we tackled these questions, and because these are so important, we got to bring these. We can't leave these on the shelves. These are really, really important. They're going to make us thoughtful, deep people, critical thinking. And after about a year, a percentage of them were like, all of them across the board were like, all right, Brock's all right. We can trust him. Not sure about his Jesus, but many of them were like, I don't know, but I feel like Jesus might be real, and he's kind of working in my life. So we get them away to camp. We go to houseboats. I rent, if you know what a houseboat is, it's a boat that looks like a trailer on the water. And they're awesome, and I rent like 10 houseboats, and we fill them with kids. And we do, at night, we climb up onto the rooftops of all the houseboats, and we have worship. Now, these kids have never worshiped. They don't know any worship songs. They've never, firm foundation. They don't know that. They don't know any songs. So I buy this projector to take to houseboat camp with us. I put it on the top of the roof. I'm going to project all the worship lyrics so that they can actually participate in worship. All my talks. We're going to get into the scriptures. We're going to talk about some really important. I'm going to put it all up on the screen. This is really important. So I buy this brand new projector. We get it on top of the roof, and the band strums their first note, and that projector blows up. Black smoke comes out of the top. I'm like, what? And the band just like, oh, you don't know these songs, but, it was awful. And I'm actually in the back, angry. Like, the whole week is ruined. Do you have a tendency to, I go from, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. Do we have any 7s in the, so I typically am really positive, but then I can really fluctuate to being the whole thing's ruined. I can literally go the opposite way. And in the back, I'm like, we might as well go home. This whole thing's ruined. These kids aren't going to be able to worship all week. All my talks were it's done. So I'm pissed. I'm mad. And the band does their best. They're yelling out lyrics to the kids. The kids are like, whatever. I get up. I do my best, but I can't show them it. None of them have a Bible. It's dark anyways. They wouldn't be able to see it if we pulled them out. It's like, oh my gosh. So the next morning, I get the projector, and we're in the cabin of my boat. It's on the table. It's me, my wife, Kelsey, my intern, Paul, who's a student at Yale University, and I'm opening up the compartments and looking at the projector, and inside the projector, the light bulb is it looks like if I touch it, it will turn to dust. It is fried. It's cooked. It's baked. Well, this kid, Sam, he's a 9th grade boy. He comes walking in, and he's like, oh, you guys, did you get the projector working? I'm like, no, dude, it's done. It's over. He's like, oh, well, did you guys pray for it? I'm like, no, it's broken. the thing is, look at the light bulb. He comes over. He's like, well, maybe you guys should pray for it. Immediately, I hate Sam. I'm like, dude, it's done. There's no way. It's over. And now Sam is this 9th grade boy who was an atheist, and God started working in his life, and right now he is filled with faith. He is just on fire for Jesus, one of the few. And he's like, well, I think we should really pray. Now, I'm feeling peer pressure by stupid Sam to pray for the projector. So we literally gather around the projector and lay our hands on this stupid projector. And I'm just, stupid Sam. Jesus, we just pray that you would heal this projector. And I'm looking at Sam's face, and I kid you not, his eyes are closed, his hand is on the projector, and he's just like, yes, Jesus, yes. And I literally was like, I hate your face right now. I hate your face. But also his just childlike, naive faith. Sometimes when you have no faith, if you've got people around you who do, you can kind of borrow their faith. Borrowing faith is key when you're wrestling with doubt. I just can't believe right now, but all of my friends around me they're sensing God, and he's leading. All right, I'm just going to kind of borrow. In that moment, I just kind of borrowed Sam's faith, and all of a sudden my prayer changed, and I was just like, God, it'd be really cool if we could get this projector working. If you could heal this projector. And then I add this. And God, we don't even need it Friday. We don't need it Friday night. Just get us through program Thursday night. All of a sudden, the projector turns on. You're like, Brock, you're nuts. The projector turns on. My computer was plugged into it, and it projected a verse on the screen at the beginning of Acts when the disciples are in the upper room and the Holy Spirit comes down in power, and for the first time they are indwelt by the Holy Spirit permanently, and they go out and thousands of people get saved. That verse, boom, on the wall, and we are there, and all of a sudden I jump back. I'm like, oh my God, and Sam is like, yes! And I'm like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? And this stupid Sam, he's the mature one. He's like, let's turn it off. Well, tonight we'll put up on the roof and we'll just see what God does. I'm like, okay. Meanwhile, the whole day, Sam is going to the whole youth group, the whole camp, and going, hey, God healed the projector. Now, it's just so cool how he healed it. And when we were like, God, we don't need it Friday. Just get us through Thursday. He's going around telling everyone this. And I'm like, shut up. Shut your face, Sam. What if it doesn't work? What are you doing? So Monday night, we take up onto the rooftop of the houseboat. And it works. It works Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Thursday night. Thursday night we're finishing program, and I'm in the back. The band is leading. I'm praying for kids. And I kid you not, the band strummed the last chord of the final song, and that stupid projector shut down. Didn't work Friday. We couldn't get that thing back on until we got a new light bulb. And our kids, these brilliant kids, I'm not joking, they fell to their knees. We were on that rooftop praying and repenting and getting right with God till 3 o'clock in the morning. We had to force them to bed. These kids knew that they were standing on holy ground. And they had moved from doubt to faith, and we were getting ready to go home and enter a movement. And some of the kids were like, Brock, I'm never doubting again. And I was like, me neither. So ridiculous. There is this amazing, God really wants you to know. He wants to answer some of your most pressing, nagging questions. And he wants you to see his son so clearly, Jesus, and to know that he is active and real. And you can experience the power and presence of a spirit in your life. It's changed and is changing me and so many. He wants you to know, though. In the scriptures, it's fun to watch the evolution of the disciples. And Jesus gets them to the point where he's like, I want them to start really asking the question about who I am. I want them to know who I am. I want them to really know. And so in Matthew chapter 8, there's this amazing story where Jesus is like, all right, I got to get them to move past this. I'm just a rabbi, teacher guy. Like, I got to get them to start really questioning. And so in Matthew chapter 8, beginning in verse 23, is this incredible story. You can kind of read it, these few verses with me as I read it out loud. Matthew 8, beginning in chapter 23, Jesus, then he got into the boat and his disciples followed him. Beautiful. Verse 24, suddenly a furious storm came up on the lake so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him up, saying, Lord, save us. We are going to drown. Now, when I read the scriptures, I like to put myself in the stories. I want to get where would I be if I was there, and where would I who would I be in the story, or how would I see Jesus? Would I be struggling with doubt? How would I be a part of, how would I see Jesus? How would I experience this? And sometimes it helps you kind of get into the story. Any story you read. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you were like, I'm not getting out of this. I'm going to die. Have you ever had a near-death experience? I was a kid who was kind of, all males pretty much are born with what's called brain damage. The frontal lobe is just not developed until our 30s. And so a lot of males, you're like, have you had any near-death experiences? And they're like, yeah, a bunch. Because we're brain damage. We don't think before we preach. The girls are like, yep, it's true. This is a long story. I'm going to tell it short and brief. I'm on a retreat with a bunch of youth workers. It's winter on the East Coast. It's been snowing. We find a sailboat in the garage of this beach house. Me and my buddy, it's February, named Mike. We're like, let's get this out there. We get the sailboat out there right as we're getting ready to go out. And I mean, we have snow gear on, basically. I am just layers and ski jacket and a couple pairs of pants and boots up to my knees. We're getting ready to launch. And I go, hey, Mike, did you see any life jackets? At the time, Mike was a guard for President Clinton and just in world-class shape. Dude was a stud, 6'4", and I was a seminary student working on my waistline, getting bigger. And I'm like, did you see any life jackets? He's like, yeah, I think I saw some in the garage. And we look, the garage is 100 yards away. We carried that boat so far through the snow, and I was like, I'm not getting them. And Mike is young and just in incredible shape, and he should have known better because he's supposedly smarter than me. But he's like, well, I'm not getting them. And we look at each other like we're men. We don't need no stinking life jackets. We'll be fine. So we jump into this boat. As soon as we put the sail up, we take off, and we're going up the waves and down the waves, and we get about 100 yards offshore. All of a sudden, the wind takes the boat, picks it up, turns it upside down, and sits it back in the water. And I immediately, because of what I'm wearing, I just sink like a rock. I don't know if you ever tried taking clothes off while in water. Not easy. I somehow get my jacket off. I get my boots off. I am just sinking. I get my sweatshirt off. And they actually found a guy the week before, frozen, with his sweatshirt stuck right here in the water there, and he drowned. I somehow get that off. I start swimming to the top. I grab the side of the boat. I pull myself up out of the water, and I'm like, take in as much oxygen as I can get in. It's so cold, and Mike is already there. And we flip that boat right side up. Mike jumps in, and the wind take him and the boat away from me, and I'm like, ah! It goes just like 20 feet, and the wind this is how windy it was. They said it was up to 60 mile an hour winds. I mean, you guys in Kansas know wind. And I didn't realize it was that windy. It cartwheeled the boat away. We never saw this sailboat again. We had to buy this house a new sailboat. So there we are, about 100 yards offshore, in hypothermia degree freezing water. Meanwhile, our house, all of our youth worker friends have come out. My wife is there, our 6-month-old baby, and they are screaming, swim, swim from the beach. The neighbors are there with their hot coffee going, yeah, these guys are dead. Every year, idiots do this. These guys aren't going to make it. And so they are all of our friends, maybe like 30 youth workers, are crying. It was quite a scene, dude. It was a scene. So we are just swimming. Now, I start hearing Mike yell out, I'm not going to make it. I'm going under. I'm screaming, but keep swimming, keep swimming. But somehow hypothermia starts to set in for me, and I can no longer move my arms. I can't move my legs. And I start to sink. Now, those of you who've had a near-death experience, people who do tend to think that in that moment, at least for me, my thoughts were crystal clear. Like, I knew I was dying. I knew there was no way getting out. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move my legs. I'm sinking. I literally can remember my arms floating and not being able to move them. And I started to think about my little girl, 6 months old. And I was like, oh, this is going to be hard for her, losing her daddy. And then I started thinking about my wife, Kelsey. And this is literally what I thought. I thought, she'll probably remarry. This is just my thoughts. She'll probably remarry. She's so awesome. And I was like, no! And somehow I kicked my way up, and I took my last and final breath. And then I sunk. And that's when I said my final prayer. I don't know what you would think or say at the end of your life. For me, it was, Jesus, we have one opportunity, one way to respond. We have one life to respond to who Jesus is. And so I literally, in that moment, went, all right, here's my response. Here's my life. Into your hands, I placed my spirit. And I can't wait to see you in a minute or two. All of a sudden, something, boom, hit me in the back. Now, I'm Generation X. We are the Jaws generation, which means our parents showed us the movie Jaws way too early. And it freaked us out, man. Literally, I was the kid in the swimming pool who would have fantasies about a shark trying to attack me, and I'm swimming to the edge of the pool, getting my legs up. Anyone else been afraid of sharks in swimming pools? Am I the only idiot in the room? I'm the only idiot in the room. So I immediately think shark. I turn around, and it is a huge beast. And I take my hands, and I put my hands on the side of this beast, and I take my foot, and I kick off of the beast. Now, the doctors told me later that it scared me so bad, it shot adrenaline through my legs and my arms, and all of a sudden, I came up out of the water, swimming like Michael Phelps to the beach, and I make it there. Already the ambulance is waiting. They jump on top of me. They start treating me for hypothermia, and I'm thinking, there's no way Mike made it, because he didn't have Jaws scare him to the beach. He was tall, and they're on top of me, treating me. I look over my shoulder, and I see him about in water this deep, on his tippy toes, trying to make it, and he somehow made it. They get us in the ambulance. We are rushing to the hospital. My wife is in there, and Mike and I are like, we're live, we're live. Like, we are just giddy with joy. And my wife is like, I hate you both, you idiots. I can't, like, she is so upset. We get to the hospital. They start treating us. The doctor comes in and says, dude, tell me, like, what happened? And I was like, sir, you have large sharks in your waters here. And I tell him the story, and this doctor's like, oh my gosh, I know what saved your life. It wasn't a shark. He goes, and I've actually Googled this, oddly. It could be true. He says there's a herd that comes into these waters every winter. They're supposed to be in the warm waters, but we have some that come here, and they're super active. I know what saved your life. I'm like, what? He goes, I guarantee you it was a manatee. And I looked at him, and I was like, I love manatees! Are you kidding me? Now, if you're like, I don't know what a manatee is, I think we have a picture of do we have a picture of a manatee? Oh, there he is. How cute is he? The disciples, now so you're like, okay, I get almost died. The disciples are in the boat. There's no manatees around as far as they know, and they think, we are going to die. It's over. And all of a sudden, the story ends in verse 27, and it says this: the men were surprised and wondered about it, because Jesus goes in verse 26, be still. And the wind and the waves cease, and then those in the boat are wondered and are surprised. You think? I'd be scared of Jesus now. I was scared of dying from the wind and the waves. I'm scared of you because they just obeyed you. They said, what kind of man is he? Who is this, that even the winds and the waves obey him? Who is this? They start to go, I don't think this is no ordinary rabbi. Who is this? Jesus wants them to know for sure who he is. He wants you to know who he really is. And in Matthew 14, you take a right a few chapters, and you get to Matthew 14, there's another story, and Jesus is like, right now, I want them to land on this. They're in a boat again. Jesus says, go on ahead, I'll catch up, which is weird. How is he going to catch up? They go all night. They're trying to get to the other side. The wind is against them. They're making no progress. Right before dawn, Jesus comes walking out to the water on them. They think he's a ghost. Now, to be honest, I would probably think he was a ghost too, because people don't walk on water. And also you're like, also the Hebrew culture. The Hebrew culture in that time believed that water represented chaos and death. So they're like, of course, a ghost is walking towards us on the water. If you've ever been baptized, The water is the tomb. It's the grave. You go under the water, representing your death. You come up out of the water, alive, new in Christ. Water is chaos. It's death. It's the abyss. It's evil. Death, where is your sting? Like, death is the enemy. Jesus is walking towards them over top of death, conquering death. It's a ghost. John is like, dude, I don't think that's a ghost. I think that's Jesus. You know the story. Peter's like, if it's you, call me out. Jesus is like, come on, homeboy, let's do this. Peter jumps out. It's not a religious scene where Peter's like, yes, Jesus, thank you. No, I can see Jesus kicking water at Peter. They are laughing. They're like two schoolboys on this adventure. This is amazing. Peter starts to sink into death. Jesus pulls him up alive. They get on the boat. And the disciples are like, oh my goodness, what did we just see? Now, when my daughter was young, we used to play a game. Because she was about 4 years old, she hit this growth spurt. And she was, I would be like, Danson, how big are you? She's like, I'm huge. I am so big. I'm like, you're growing so big. You are huge. We would play this game. Peter gets onto the boat, and the disciples are like, dude, how big is Jesus? And Peter's like, he's so big. This is no rabbi. This is God in the flesh. This is the Messiah. And they land. Now, the story ends in verse, do we have the verse how the story ends? Then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, truly. They landed. They finally landed on who Jesus is. You are the Son of God. And they worship him. They spend the rest of their lives worshiping Jesus. Now, Monday I told you a little bit about my story, how Dr. Brown invited me into this, hey, join the movement. And you see these disciples move from doubt to faith and into a movement. And that's the motion. That's the direction. Your professors here, your teachers, your friends, it's amazing what God is doing around the world right now. It's insane what's happening in Europe. It's been happening for quite a few years now, where literally youth pastors my friends in England will post 1,000 kids came to Jesus last night. Like, they are joining the movement. Like, there's this, it's not in a room, it is outside the church. It is, things are happening because young people are not getting stuck from doubt into religion. They're going doubt into this connection with Jesus and into this movement, because the world, gang, it's broken. It's the first time I've ever stood in front of teenagers all over the country. It doesn't matter where they are, and they're like, I don't know if what you're saying about Jesus is true, but I know the way the direction the culture is going, this ain't working. I am just like overwhelmed with anxiety and fear, and I'm struggling, and I'm having suicidal thoughts. Like, this isn't working for me. I don't know if the way of Jesus is. And so kids, for the first time, I don't have to convince them that the way of the world is not the best way. I don't have to convince them that way is leading to death, to more anxiety. And the way of Jesus is about living freely and lightly. Jesus said, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For my way is easy. It really isn't easy. But to be with Jesus, there's an ease to it. There's a freedom to it. The movement is difficult at times. But man, if I were to have a heart attack on this stage right now, and my last words, it would be like, what a ride. Like, I wouldn't trade a thing. I'm going to pray. I'm going to invite the band to close. And I just want you during this last song maybe to just open your life and just be like, God, maybe it's that experiment. If you're real. Or maybe it's, I've just been so numb for so long. God, do a new work in me. And we're just going to respond to him together. Will you join us?
All these pieces broken and scattered, in mercy gathered, mended and whole, empty-handed but not forsaken. I've been set free. I've been set free. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Whoa, I once was lost, but now I am found. Was blind, but now I see. Oh, I can see it now. Oh, I can see the love in your eyes. You're laying yourself down and raising up the broken to life. You take our failures, you take our weakness, you set your treasure in jars of clay. So take this heart, Lord, I'll be your vessel, the world to see your life in me. Yeah. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Whoa, I once was lost, but now I am found. Peace be with you. Y'all can leave.